Tucson Eviction Attorney, how landlords find a good one. If you are searching for a Tucson eviction attorney, that probably means you need one now. Here's how to find an attorney who actually knows landlord-tenant law, can navigate the Pima County Justice Court, and who won't overcharge you for a process that's often routine. Hi, Steve Schultz here from Blue Fox Properties. Let's get right to it. So for starters, you want a specialist, not a generalist. So in other words, you want someone that specializes in Arizona landlord-tenant law, not a general real estate attorney. And you want someone who is literally in front of the local eviction judges on a weekly basis. So there's an old joke that illustrates this point. It goes like this: a good attorney knows the law, a better attorney knows the other attorney, the best attorney knows the judge. So it's really important that you find an attorney that knows the judge and can anticipate what they're gonna want and how they're gonna rule. Processing evictions is a volume and speed business for attorneys who do it well, and you want someone who's efficient, not someone who's learning on your case. A good attorney will help you win the case and protect you from any counterclaims. So where to search? So let's talk about where to search online. How do you find a good Tucson eviction attorney? So starters, search Google. You might just type in the phrase Tucson landlord attorney or maybe Tucson eviction attorney, something like that, and you'll get all kinds of attorneys that come up. Next, you might actually search the State Bar of Arizona, and their website is azbar.org. And there again, you can search landlord or eviction or different terms that'll segregate out the different attorneys and what they specialize in. You might also search on directories. So there are several different directories out there. A couple of examples are avvo.com, findlaw.com, lawinfo.com. And here again on these sites, you can filter specifically for landlord attorney or eviction attorney. But again, remember, don't search for a general real estate attorney. Now, if you found an attorney somewhere other than directly from the state bar, you can cross-check their name against the State Bar of Arizona for their license status and any disciplinary records. Now, before we move on to the next item, if you don't want to deal with finding an eviction attorney in the future or anything else as it relates to your property, contact us about managing your Tucson rental house, and perhaps we are a fit for you. So where to search offline? There are a couple different places you can go to search offline. One, you can contact a fellow landlord that has had success with an eviction attorney. Two, if you have a friend that works in property management, ask that person for a referral. The thing you have to understand with that is there are some attorneys that don't work with private individual landlords. They only work with property management companies. So that may or may not be a fit depending on the attorney. And then the next thing you might be able to do, it's very time intensive, but if you are willing to do it, you can actually go down to the Pima County Courthouse and look at the docket for attorneys that are processing large numbers of evictions. So you can actually see the docket, it's posted, and you can see the attorneys that are doing a bunch of cases. Usually they'll line them up in chunks of time so that the attorney is just there for a period of time to knock them all out, and they're on to the next thing they do that day. Now, you want to pick an attorney that is in the Pima County courts regularly. So in other words, don't pick an attorney from Phoenix that is never in the Tucson courts. Although the state law is the same, the local judges enforce things differently than in other parts of the state. So an attorney who regularly appears locally will know the specific judge's tendencies and how they handle evictions. In addition, Tucson has some local laws that may come into play, and that's another reason why you want local representation. So what are some of the questions to ask before hiring an eviction attorney? So I'm going to give you 7. These certainly aren't exhaustive, but at least it'll get you started. So number 1, how many evictions do you file in the Pima County Justice Court per month? And I say you because if it's an attorney that works for a larger firm, you don't care about how much the firm files every month. You care about that specific attorney because you're trying to see if they have the experience that you'd like them to have representing you. So you want to ask them, how many do you file? And specifically, again, in Pima County Justice Court here locally. Number 2, how fast can you file once you receive all the required information from me? So you want to have an understanding of, once you get them all that information, how long will it take to actually get everything filed? Number 3, what should I expect in terms of your response time to phone calls and emails from me? So I think 24 hours is a reasonable expectation. Some people do longer. You certainly don't want more than a few days, and it's one of those things you just want to understand and set that expectation from the front end so you know what to expect. Number 4, what is your approximate success rate? Now, what I'm going for here, I don't expect them to answer that with my success rate is 94.735, right? Like, not an exact number, but for for 2 days or 2 weeks or 2 months or 2 years or whatever, right? So getting you in the ballpark of what to expect there. Number 5, for cases that you didn't win, why didn't you win them? So there might be a very logical answer for that as well. It was a very specific scenario and this was the situation, whatever. Again, I'm not looking for a whole lot of detail here, but just looking for them to expound on why they didn't win some of the cases. Number 6, do you charge a flat fee or hourly rate? Now, it's most routine for evictions that have to do with non-payment of rent, which are the most common evictions that are done, are typically flat fee. They're usually pretty straightforward, pretty simple for the attorney to process. Again, they're lining them all up on the docket at once, so they're all typically going from one to the next to the next. Now, if it is a contested eviction, then it may shift at that point to an hourly rate. But whatever the case is, get it in writing. And understand too that if it does shift to an hourly rate, that's totally legitimate because there is a lot more involved than just that standard process that they're normally used to. And then number 7, what's included in the flat fee if they do say it's flat fee pricing? So you want to understand, is that writing and sending the notice? Does that include filing fees? Does that include the court appearance? What about serving the writ of restitution? You just want to understand what that scope of work is so you understand what you're paying for, and you also want to understand what's not included so you can plan for those expenses as well. So what are some of the red flags as you're talking to these attorneys and asking them these questions? So first of all, maybe they give you no clear answer on their Pima County Justice Court volume and experience, which might indicate that they don't have any, right? So you want to make sure you understand that. Maybe they have no experience in handling eviction cases. Again, maybe they're a general real estate attorney and, they say, what the heck, this is, real estate, and so I can handle this too. You don't want that. They don't ask about your notice documentation before quoting a price. So they'll typically want to see your lease and notice before committing to a price, and this is perfectly legitimate because they want to know, what are their odds winning the case easily? Is all the documentation correct? All those types of things. So that's perfectly legitimate if they ask for that information. And then lastly, they can't clearly explain their fee structure and how it works. Obviously if they're like hemming and hawing over that and can't give you a straight answer, something to be concerned about and a red flag. So ideally, you want to find an attorney that does lots of evictions, is in front of the local judges on a weekly basis, communicates with you in a timely manner when you need it, gives you a fair price, and most importantly, can win your case. So that's it for finding a good eviction attorney. Don't forget to subscribe below, and I'll see you on the next video.